You're watching a special edition of the Future of Real Estate. I'm Darryl Baskin of the Baskin Real Estate Specialists at eXp Realty. You can hear the Future of Real Estate on KRMG Saturdays at 1 p.m., Tulsa's source for local real estate news and information. So, June 26th, we have an election for Tulsa County's assessor, and we've had the same assessor for a very long time, so this is something we haven't discussed in many years. And my special guest candidate for Tulsa County Assessor, John Wright. And John, I just want to jump right into the questions of things that we can learn about you. I've known you for many years and had some conversations about assessment over those years, but we haven't had any recent conversations. So,
well, Darryl, thank you for having me on and allowing the voters an opportunity to make an informed decision.
My pleasure. So tell me about your family, just the background of John.
Well, that's a great question to start with, Darryl. I've been married to my wife, Debbie, for 36 years, be 37 this July. Have one adult married daughter, Ashley, and she's been married for 5 years, but no grandkids yet. Unfortunately, both my parents are deceased.
So how long have you been in Tulsa?
I first moved to Tulsa in the fall, actually August of 1980. So been some time now, and moved here to attend ORU Graduate School of Theology. As
many people did.
Yes.
Have. So where were you before Tulsa?
I actually moved here from Oklahoma City. I'd been in Oklahoma City for a year, and prior to that, I was working for a company out of St. Louis in the family portrait business, as a matter of fact. Interesting.
Yeah, I come from the St. Louis area when I moved here in junior high. Well, tell me this, aside from the basics of the job to assess property value, what is your personal philosophy of the duties of the assessor?
You know, the assessor's office is not a policy office. It's been referred to as a ministerial function. Our requirement is execute the requirements of the state statutes that are placed upon the assessor's office. It's one of 8 county elected positions. Obviously, you have the court clerk, the county clerk, the county sheriff, the 3 county commissioners, the treasurer, and the assessor. So the duties are fairly well divided. The assessor's office is to come up with an accurate, fair market value on all property in the county on an annual basis for ad valorem purposes. Ad valorem, of course, Latin being for according to value.
Good. We need a little education as we go. I think in the political world, and this is why I like to let other people participate, my viewers participate in this discussion, is we don't have these conversations a lot. So the meanings of some of these words that are thrown around, it can be somewhat confusing, or maybe we just thought we knew what they meant and they didn't. I'd appreciate maybe an elementary description of what the assessor's office does and why that matters to me and my clients who are buying and selling properties.
You know, that's a great question and a great place to start. The assessor's office, by putting an accurate, fair market value on all property in the county, and certainly being in the real estate business, you understand the market valuation.
Yes, sir.
What would a property bring with market exposure, some market information, willing buyer, willing seller, both acting in their own self-interest and coming to an agreement on the transaction price? We're supposed to be within 10% of that number on a residential basis. The reason we're given the leeway, the law prohibits us from viewing the inside of residence. So obviously there's a great deal of factors inside a residence that can affect valuation. So if you have, to make the math easy, if you have a $100,000 property that sells, the assessor's office should have had it on for at least $90,000 and no more than $110,000. That valuation then is applied to a percentage. In Tulsa County, it's 11% of the market valuation becomes the gross assessment. From that, any lawful exemptions are subtracted, and then that number is multiplied times the millage rate. The millage rate can vary depending upon the school district, the municipality. In Tulsa County, the millage rate is usually somewhere in between about 120 mills and 140 mills.
Now that's the part we vote on as voters,
correct? That is correct. So the assessor's office really has little to no impact on the millage rate, other than contributing to the public discussion and trying to be sure that that rate is no more than what the lawful entities that can receive the millage are entitled to receive. So again, we don't set the tax rate. However, it is important. In Tulsa County, we don't pay personal property tax on our household possessions, but businesses still are encumbered with business personal property tax. In other words, their equipment, their inventory, and in some of the businesses, it can run into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on an annual basis. So a high millage rate actually serves as a detriment to attracting business and industry into the county.
What would you do to improve the office?
You know, Darryl, since I've had the opportunity to work in the office for 7.5 years, that's a question that we're challenged with on a regular basis. You know, some of the things that we have done to improve the office, we completely revamped the cross-training program. The current assessor wants to be sure that everyone in the office has a thorough knowledge and understanding of everything that pertains to the office. As they're seen in the community, people ask them questions about the office. He wants to be sure that we're disseminating accurate information. We changed the cross-training program from one based on time. In other words, each employee, when they start with the office, spending a month or so in each department, to one based on task. I got this from my flight training. When you learn how to fly an airplane, there's specific tasks that you learn how to do. For example, a short field landing, a short field takeoff. And by learning those specific tasks, it teaches you about the aerodynamics. It teaches you about how to be safe in the flight. In the office, by doing it on a task base, it's kept the employee that is trying to learn the different departments focused on the task, and the trainer focused on what they're trying to teach them. So it keeps the orientation for the training much better focused. And also we found that it's completing it more effectively and more efficiently.
So there's a field of 4 candidates, correct?
That is correct.
Running. What makes you uniquely qualified?
You know, in this case, I think that that perhaps is the best question to ask today. Okay? I've been in the office for 7.5 years. I first met Ken, who's the current county assessor. He was elected to that position in 2002. But I first met him when I was knocking doors for a house district in 1998. He lived in Broken Arrow. He invited me to his '99 Super Bowl party, and he's a fairly outgoing individual. That kind of started the relationship. Over the years that I was in the legislature, I served from 1998 to 2010 in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He had communicated with me on several issues of concern that he had that were before the legislature. So I had gotten to know him a little bit over the time in the legislature. What the assessor's office does and is required to do is spelled out by the state statutes and by the administrative rules, which are implemented or promulgated is the official term by the Tax Commission. While I was in the legislature, I served for 6 years as chairman of the Administrative Rules Committee, so I know exactly the process the Tax Commission has to go through to implement those rules. Obviously, would be able to stay abreast of changes and anticipated implementation of policy change on the assessor's office. So the legislative background, prior to that, I obtained my Oklahoma real estate license in 1998. I wanted to be sure when I completed service in the legislature that if needed, I could employ myself with the skills in the real estate industry. Though it wasn't my main focus when I was in the legislature, I did proceed to do enough transactions and obtain my broker's license, so I understand those factors that affect value in real estate. Obviously, that's at the core of the assessor's responsibility. So it's the real estate background, the legislative experience, and then the 7.5 years in the office, the last year serving as chief deputy, which means when Ken's been out of the office, I've sat in on the budget board, the Board of Tax Roll Corrections. I've attended literally hundreds of Board of County Commissioners meetings, very familiar with the operation of Tulsa County, and that would afford the citizens a very smooth transition from one administration to the next.
What would you say is wrong with the assessor's office today?
You know, I've thought about anticipating a question such as this, and really the answer that comes to mind more than anything else, there's 83 personnel in the office, and it's been the same number since I first came into the office in 2010. Despite the growth in the number of parcels, we haven't grown the personnel. But a large number of those personnel have sedentary jobs. They're sitting at a desk all day, and unfortunately that's not been very healthy. I think one of the things that we can do to improve the office is improve the health and well-being, the physical health of the employees in the office. I realize wellness programs are hard to implement in many businesses, and especially in a government structure, but an awareness and importance on the whole person in terms of their well-being will create a better run office, better morale, and hopefully less lost sick days.
It's interesting. So that's the wrong question. How about the right question? What do you think is right with the office?
You know, some of the things that we've done very well. I mentioned the cross-training program. There's just over 80 personnel, and in that personnel, there's over 800 years of experience. So it's very hard to get hired with the office. We have a several-step interview process. However, once hired, apparently we're not running people off very well. But so we have a very talented workforce in the office. So that's one of the key components. There's an international organization called the International Association of Assessing Officers that has continuing professional development classes. So in addition to the required Oklahoma State University assessment accreditation, which all of the employees go through, it's statutorily required of those employees that put value on property. So we don't hire someone and send them out to the field to value someone's property. They're very well trained before they're assigned that responsibility. But the International Association of Assessing Officers has a professional development program whereby our employees can get a designation and recognition not only within the profession but also throughout the organization as a whole. Personally, I'm only one test away from receiving a assessment designation of Assessment Administration Specialist. It's based on continuing education, tested classes, and time in the profession.
You've already kind of answered this. What did you do prior to running for this office?
Okay, well, immediately, for the past 7.5 years, obviously, I've worked full-time for the Tulsa County Assessor. From 1998 to 2010, November of 2010, I was honored to serve House District 76, which is about a third of the city of Broken Arrow. And at the conclusion of that, as I mentioned, Ken Yazel, the current county assessor, essentially recruited me to work in the office. I had my Oklahoma real estate broker's license. It is the policy of the office that none of our personnel actively participate in the real estate profession to avoid the
conflict of interest.
To avoid the appearance of conflict of interest. So my license is currently on inactive status, so I would have to take a few.
But you work hard to get that, so don't let it go.
Well, no, I'm maintaining on inactive, and I would only have to take a couple of days classes to reactivate it.
I'd welcome you back as a peer if you did
thank
that.
you.
So the day one, you're in the office now, but day one you're in charge. What's the first thing you'd check off your list?
You know, that's a great question, and of course it helps one envision being successful in the race, which is a good thing. You know, I think that overall the one change that could be positively implemented, other than the fact that I think the mystery shopper idea is very good, that ups the level of service as people don't know whether or not they're being shopped by an average taxpayer or the mystery shopper program. But I'd like to recognize and reinforce the contribution that the employees are making to the office. Plus, there's a statistical calculation that really is the measurement of the assessment profession. It's called a ratio study. What did the assessor's office have the property assessed for when it sold? And that creates a ratio that determines how accurately our assessments are being done. This currently is being tracked. The doc stamps that someone has required to attach to a deed when they file it at the county clerk's office is one of the indications of the value of the transaction. That calculation can be done by the computer comparing the sale price to the assessment price. That way, if we have any assessments that are significantly out of line, they'd stick out like a sore thumb and we'd be able to address those issues.
Well, endorsements, are there any particular endorsements that you're proud to claim?
You know, one of the ones that I think I'm happiest about, I had an opportunity through the Jenks Chamber of Commerce to interact with Mr. Lehman, the former superintendent of Jenks Schools. And he had interacted with me on several occasions at the state capitol and engaged in several conversations, and he's endorsed me. Obviously, the current assessor strongly supports my election opportunity as he sees it be a smooth transition for the office. The current court clerk, Don Newberry, he and I worked very closely together in the assessor's office for the past 5 years. He knows my work ethic and my approach to supervising the employees, and he strongly supports my elected effort as well.
What do you think voters need to understand before they're casting their ballot? Just a brass tacks.
You know, the assessor's office does not set the tax rate. We set the fair market value that the tax rate is multiplied by. And so the entities that receive the property taxes, principally the schools, Career Tech, Community College, the Tulsa County Library System, and of course county government itself, are recipients of those property tax dollars. These entities create help create a stable community. And so in order to afford a smooth transition of the responsibilities of the office, I personally believe that'd be the best choice to offer a smooth transition, stability and continuity of performance of the assessor's office, which ultimately contributes to a stable community.
Thanks for taking time today, and glad you're watching, because this is an important election for us. As a realtor, I'm dealing with this every day, and who our assessor is, there are times when any one of us may have to walk into the office and deal with that office. So being treated fairly is very important. So more information about your campaign, John?
Very good. WrightForAssessor.com, Wright with a W.
Yes.
And as people go to the web, our assessor's website gets 3,000 to 5,000 visits a day. Principally insurance, finance professionals. We have a tremendous wealth of information up on the website. We have a similar properties button that enables the average property owner to compare his property's value to recent sales in the last 2 years. So I would encourage the viewer to check that out. It'll give them a lot of information as to whether they're assessed fairly, and if they feel that they're unfairly assessed, they have a right of appeal of that valuation. They can use our information in that appeal.
I use that site a lot.
Very good.
Thank you. Well, you've been watching The Future of Real Estate. I'm Darryl Baskin of the Baskin Real Estate Specialists at eXp Realty. And thank you for watching and becoming a more educated voter. Remember, you can listen to The Future of Real Estate Saturdays at 1 p.m. on KRMG. That's AM 740 and FM 102.3. And find out more information online at darrylbaskin.com. AskinForBaskin.com is my calendar available to you. If you have a question about real estate, schedule a 15-minute phone call. AskinForBaskin.com. That's AskinForBaskin. No cost or obligation. Be happy to visit with you and see if we can help you with your real estate needs. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here on the next edition of The Future of Real Estate.